Triplet girls crashed a billionaire's wedding like a storm. Minutes later, they dropped a DNA bomb that froze the entire room in silence. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. The sound of expensive champagne glasses clinking together filled the grand ballroom of the Harrington estate as Harold Spencer, tech billionaire and one of the world's most eligible bachelors, celebrated his wedding day. His new bride, Victoria Caldwell, a former supermodel turned philanthropist, beamed at his side, her custom-designed Vera Wang dress cascading around her like a waterfall of ivory silk. The wedding was the social event of the year, with over 300 elite guests including celebrities, politicians, and business moguls, all gathered to witness the union of two of New York's most celebrated figures. Mia Morgan stood across the street from the estate, her heart pounding against her ribcage. At 25, her delicate features framed by wavy chestnut hair that fell just past her shoulders, she appeared calm and collected on the outside. But inside, a storm was brewing. The invitation she'd forged was tucked securely in her clutch, along with a folded piece of paper that contained the truth that had kept her awake for months. "Are you sure we should do this?" her sister Lily asked, adjusting the strap of her emerald green dress that matched Mia's exactly. Despite being identical triplets, the sisters had learned over the years to carry themselves differently. Where Mia's posture spoke of determination, Lily's betrayed her anxiety. "We've been over this 100 times, Mia replied, her eyes never leaving the estate's entrance. "If we don't do it today, we might never get another chance." The third sister, Emma, stepped out of the taxi that had just pulled up, completing their trio. Unlike her sisters, who had arrived together, Emma had insisted on coming separately, a final protest against what they were about to do. Her reluctance was evident in every movement as she smoothed down her identical emerald dress. "This is insane," Emma whispered as she joined them. "We're about to crash a billionaire's wedding. There's security everywhere. We'll be arrested before we even make it inside." Mia shook her head, determination hardening her features. "The security is focused on keeping out paparazzi and fans, not guests with invitations." She patted her clutch. "These invitations may be forged, but they're perfect replicas. I made sure of it." "And if we do get inside?" Emma pressed. "What then? We just walk up to Harold Spencer on his wedding day in front of hundreds of people and drop this bomb?" "That's exactly what we do," Mia confirmed. "He deserves to know. They all deserve to know." Lily placed a gentle hand on Emma's arm. "Mom would have wanted us to do this. You know that." Their mother, Eleanor Morgan, had passed away 3 months ago after a prolonged battle with cancer. In her final days, delirious with pain and medication, she had revealed a secret she'd kept for over 25 years, a secret that had led the three sisters to this moment, standing outside the wedding of a man who had no idea they existed. "Fine," Emma finally conceded. "But if this goes wrong, I'm blaming both of you." The sisters approached the estate's entrance, their identical appearances causing heads to turn. The security guard at the door barely glanced at their invitations before waving them through, more interested in the celebrities arriving behind them in limousines with tinted windows. Inside, the ballroom was a vision of opulence. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting a warm glow over the gathering. Ice sculptures shaped like swans adorned the center of each table, surrounded by arrangements of white roses and orchids. A string quartet played softly in the corner, their music a gentle backdrop to the buzz of conversation. "There he is," Lily murmured, nodding toward the front of the room where Harold Spencer stood chatting with a group of well-wishers. At 50, he was still remarkably handsome, with salt-and-pepper hair and the confident posture of a man who had built an empire from nothing. His new bride stood at his side, her hand possessively linked through his arm. "Wait," Emma urged, grabbing Mia's wrist as she took a step forward. "Let's think about this. Maybe we should approach him privately after the reception." "There won't be a privately today," Mia responded. He's surrounded by people now, and he will be until they leave for their honeymoon tonight. It's now or never." "Mia's right," Lily agreed, though her voice trembled slightly. "We didn't come this far to back out now." They made their way across the ballroom, drawing curious glances from the guests who noticed the identical triplets in matching dresses. A waiter offered them champagne, which they declined. They needed clear heads for what was to come. Harold Spencer was in the middle of a laugh when he noticed them approaching. His smile faltered slightly, confusion crossing his features as he registered the three identical young women moving purposefully toward him. The conversation around him died down as others followed his gaze. "Harold Spencer?" Mia spoke first, her voice steady despite the rapid beating of her heart. He nodded, curiosity replacing his confusion. "Yes. I'm sorry. Have we met?" "No," Mia replied. "We haven't. But we should have. A long time ago." Victoria, the bride, stepped closer to her new husband, a protective gesture that didn't go unnoticed by the sisters. "I'm sorry. Who are you?" she asked, her tone polite but with an edge of steel beneath it. "My name is Mia Morgan," she introduced herself. "These are my sisters, Lily and Emma. We're triplets, as you can see." "Morgan?" Harold repeated, his brow furrowing as if trying to place the name. "Our mother was Eleanor Morgan," Lily continued, taking over as Mia's voice threatened to break. "She worked for you as a research assistant at Spencer Technologies in 1997. You might remember her." A flash of recognition crossed Harold's face, followed quickly by something else. Alarm. "Eleanor? Yes, I remember her. Brilliant mind. She left the company rather suddenly, as I recall." "She left because she was pregnant," Emma said, her initial reluctance fading as she confronted the man before them. "With triplets." A hush fell over the immediate area as guests sensed the tension unfolding. Victoria's grip on Harold's arm tightened visibly. "I'm not sure what you're implying," Harold said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "But this is hardly the time or place for—" "We're not implying anything," Mia interrupted, reaching into her clutch and pulling out the folded paper. She unfolded it carefully, revealing a DNA test result. "We're stating a fact. You are our biological father." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the string quartet seemed to hesitate, their music faltering before continuing with a slightly discordant note. Harold's face drained of color as he stared at the paper Mia held out to him. That's not possible," he stammered, making no move to take the document. "It is possible, and it's true," Lily insisted. "Our mother never told you because she knew you were engaged to someone else at the time. She didn't want to ruin your life. So she raised us alone," Emma added. "Worked 3 jobs to put food on the table while you built your empire. Never asked you for a penny." Victoria finally broke her silence. "This is outrageous. You 3 show up at our wedding with some piece of paper and expect us to believe this fantasy?" "It's not a fantasy," Mia replied calmly. "It's our life. We've lived 25 years without a father because our mother made a choice to protect your reputation." She looked directly at Harold. "She never stopped loving you, you know, even after all these years." Harold's hand trembled as he finally reached for the DNA test results. His eyes scanned the page, lingering on the percentage that confirmed paternity with near certainty. "How did you get my DNA?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "Mom kept a watch you gave her," Lily explained, "with a few of your hairs still tangled in the links. She never could bring herself to throw it away." The crowd around them had grown, guests whispering to each other as they witnessed the drama unfolding. Someone from the back called for the security guards, but Harold raised a hand to stop them. "No," he said firmly. "Let them stay." Victoria turned to him in shock. "Harold, you can't possibly be entertaining this. They're obviously con artists looking for money." "We don't want your money," Emma said, a hint of indignation in her voice. "We have careers of our own. Mia is a software engineer, Lily's a pediatrician, and I'm an environmental lawyer. We're doing just fine without your billions." "Then what do you want?" Harold asked, genuine confusion in his voice. Mia took a deep breath. "Our mother died 3 months ago. Cancer. In her final days, she told us the truth about you. She made us promise to find you, to tell you about us. Not for money or for scandal, but because she thought you deserved to know that you have 3 daughters." Harold's composure cracked at this news. "Eleanor is dead?" he whispered. And for a moment the successful businessman was gone, replaced by a man grieving for someone he had once cared for. "Yes," Lily confirmed gently. "She fought hard, but in the end, it was too much. Her last wish was for us to meet you, just once." The room had fallen completely silent now, hundreds of eyes fixed on the unfolding scene. Victoria had dropped Harold's arm and stepped back slightly, her expression unreadable. The weight of the moment pressed down on all of them, suspended in time like the crystals hanging from the chandeliers above. "I think," Harold finally said, clearing his throat, "that we should continue this conversation somewhere more private." He turned to Victoria, whose face had hardened into a mask. "I'm sorry, my dear. I need to speak with these young women." "On our wedding day?" Victoria hissed, but there was more hurt than anger in her voice. "You're leaving our reception to talk to 3 strangers claiming to be your daughters?" "They're not strangers," Harold replied, looking again at the DNA results in his hand. "At least it appears they're not." He turned to the triplets. "There's a study down the hall. We can talk there." As Harold led the 3 sisters away from the reception, the room erupted in whispers. Victoria stood frozen in place, watching her new husband walk away with 3 young women who shared his eyes, his chin, his walk. Similarities that were suddenly glaringly obvious to everyone in the room. In the study, Harold closed the door behind them, shutting out the noise and chaos they'd left behind. He turned to face his daughters, seeing them clearly for the first time. 3 young women who had his features blended with Eleanor's, standing before him like mirrors to a past he'd tried to forget. "Eleanor never told me," he said finally, his voice thick with emotion. "I swear to you, I never knew." "We believe you," Mia said, speaking for all 3 of them. "She didn't want to burden you, but she also didn't want to leave this world with you never knowing about us." Harold sank into a leather chair, the DNA test results still clutched in his hand. 25 years, he murmured. "I've missed 25 years of your lives." "It's not too late," Lily offered hesitantly. If you want to know us now." Harold looked up at the 3 young women standing before him, identical in appearance, but each with her own presence, her own soul. His daughters. The word echoed in his mind, foreign yet somehow right. "Yes," he said finally. "I want to know you. All of you, if you'll let me." Outside the study, the wedding reception continued in disarray, the bride standing alone at the altar of her disrupted fairy tale. Inside, a father and his daughters began the first tentative steps toward bridging a lifetime of absence, unaware that their story was just beginning. Victoria Spencer stood alone at the head table, her wedding dress suddenly feeling too tight, too heavy. The whispers around her had grown into a dull roar as guests speculated about the dramatic confrontation they had just witnessed. Her new husband had been gone for nearly 20 minutes, secluded in his study with 3 young women claiming to be his daughters. Daughters he never knew existed. "Victoria, darling, are you all right?" Her mother appeared at her side, concern etched into her expertly lifted features. "I'm fine, Mother," Victoria replied automatically, though she was anything but. Her perfectly planned wedding day, the culmination of a 2-year courtship with one of the most powerful men in the country, was unraveling before her eyes. "Should I send someone to check on Harold?" her mother persisted, glancing meaningfully toward the door through which Harold had disappeared. Victoria straightened her spine. "No. If my husband wants to spend our wedding reception with 3 strangers, that's his choice. I won't appear desperate by sending someone after him." In the study, time seemed to move differently. Harold sat across from the triplets, trying to process the revelation that had turned his world upside down. He had daughters, 3 of them, with Eleanor Morgan, a woman he'd known briefly but intensely over 2 decades ago. "Tell me about yourselves," he said finally, breaking the silence that had settled over them. "I've missed so much. I want to know everything." The sisters exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. "I'll start," Mia offered. "I work as a software engineer at a startup in Boston. Graduated from MIT 3 years ago." "MIT?" Harold couldn't hide his pride. "That's where I went." "We know," Mia nodded. "Mom told us. She said you were brilliant. That's partly why I wanted to go there. To follow in your footsteps, even though I didn't know if I'd ever meet you." Harold felt a pang of regret for all the moments he'd missed. "And you, Lily? Emma? What paths did you choose?" "I'm a pediatrician," Lily said, her voice softer than Mia's but with the same underlying strength. "I work at Boston Children's Hospital. I always loved taking care of people, ever since we were little. And I'm an environmental lawyer," Emma added, "currently working for a non-profit that challenges corporations on their pollution practices." She gave a small, ironic smile. "I've actually argued cases against some of your company's subsidiaries." Harold raised his eyebrows. "Well, that's interesting. I'd like to hear more about those cases sometime." He paused, studying their faces. "You're all so accomplished. Your mother must have been very proud." "She was," Lily confirmed, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "She worked so hard to give us opportunities, to make sure we could pursue our dreams." "What was she like?" Harold asked, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Later in life, I mean. We lost touch after she left the company." "She was amazing," Emma said, emotion cracking her normally composed demeanor. "Strong, funny, always putting us first. She worked multiple jobs when we were young to keep us in good schools, never complained even when things were tough." "And she never remarried?" Harold asked. Mia shook her head. "There were a few relationships over the years, but nothing serious. She always said her hands were full enough with 3 daughters." "Did she—" Harold hesitated, unsure if he wanted to know the answer. "Did she ever speak of me? Before the end, I mean." The sisters exchanged another glance. "Sometimes," Lily replied carefully. "She kept a photo of you in her bedside drawer, a newspaper clipping from when you made your first million. She would look at it on our birthdays. She told us you were a good man," Mia added. "Ambitious, but kind. She said you had dreams that were bigger than the life she could offer you." Harold closed his eyes briefly, memories of Eleanor flooding back. Her intelligence, her quiet determination, her gentle humor. She had been an excellent research assistant. But more than that, there had been a connection between them, one he'd been too focused on his career to fully explore. By the time he realized what he might have felt for her, she was gone, having submitted her resignation without explanation. "I wish she had told me," he said, opening his eyes, "about all of you. I would have helped, would have been part of your lives." "Would you?" Emma challenged, her lawyer's instinct for cross-examination surfacing. "You were engaged to someone else when Mom got pregnant. Your career was taking off. Would you really have welcomed a scandal involving a pregnant employee?" Harold considered her words. "I don't know," he admitted honestly. "The man I was then, he might have seen it as a complication, but I'd like to think I would have done the right thing." "It doesn't matter now," Lily interjected, always the peacemaker among the sisters. "Mom made her choice, and she never regretted it. She gave us a good life." A knock at the door interrupted their conversation. Without waiting for a response, Victoria entered, her wedding dress rustling as she moved. Her expression was a careful mask of composure, but her eyes betrayed her anger and hurt. "Harold," she said, her voice clipped. "Our guests are wondering where you've gone. We're supposed to cut the cake in 5 minutes." Harold stood, suddenly remembering that he was in the middle of his wedding reception. "Victoria, I'm sorry, I lost track of time." He turned to the triplets. "I need to go back, but this conversation isn't over. Can we meet again soon?" "Of course," Mia replied, standing along with her sisters. "We're staying at the Marquis Hotel downtown until tomorrow." "I'll come by in the morning," Harold promised, then turned to his new wife. "Victoria, these are Mia, Lily, and Emma Morgan, my daughters." Victoria's perfectly made-up face remained impassive. "So I gathered. How convenient that they appeared on our wedding day of all days." "It wasn't about ruining your wedding," Lily quickly assured her. "We tried contacting Harold through his company multiple times over the past months, but our messages never got through. The wedding was our last resort." "Indeed," Victoria said, clearly unconvinced. "Well, your bomb has been dropped. Perhaps now you can allow my husband and me to return to our celebration?" Harold placed a gentle hand on Victoria's arm. "They're not trying to cause trouble, Victoria. They're my family." "Family?" Victoria repeated, her composure slipping for just a moment. "You met them 20 minutes ago." "Nevertheless," Harold replied firmly. "They're my daughters, and I intend to get to know them." He turned back to the triplets. "Tomorrow morning, I'll come to your hotel. We have a lot more to talk about." As Harold and Victoria left the study, tension crackling between them, the triplets remained behind, absorbing the impact of what had just occurred. "Well," Emma said once the door closed, "that went better than I expected. I thought we'd be thrown out by security." "He seems genuinely interested in knowing us," Lily observed, her natural optimism surfacing. "That's more than we could have hoped for." Mia, always the most practical of the three, was less convinced. "Let's see if he actually shows up tomorrow. The new wife clearly isn't thrilled about our existence." "Can you blame her?" Emma countered. "We just ruined her wedding day by revealing her new husband has 3 adult children he never knew about. I'd be furious too." As they made their way out of the study, they could hear the reception continuing in the ballroom, music playing, guests chatting, though undoubtedly the main topic of conversation was the dramatic scene they had caused. They slipped out a side entrance, avoiding the crowd and the inevitable stares. Back at their hotel, the triplets sat in Mia's room, still processing the events of the day. They had ordered room service and changed out of their matching emerald dresses into more comfortable clothes, but the adrenaline from their confrontation with Harold still coursed through their veins, making sleep impossible. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Lily asked, picking at her club sandwich. "Maybe Emma was right. We should have waited, approached him privately." "It's done now," Mia said, sipping a glass of red wine. "And honestly, I think it worked out. He listened to us. He wants to see us again." "Unless Victoria changes his mind overnight," Emma pointed out, scrolling through her phone. "Oh great, we're trending on social media. Someone at the wedding posted about us." Mia and Lily moved closer to look at Emma's screen. A blurry photo showed the 3 of them confronting Harold with the caption, "Breaking, tech billionaire Harold Spencer confronted by triplets claiming to be his secret daughters at his wedding." Wedding drama. Billionaire secrets. "Fantastic," Mia groaned. "Now we're a hashtag." "This is going to be a nightmare," Lily worried. "What if reporters start digging into our lives? Into Mom's life?" "We knew this might happen," Mia reminded them. "We discussed it before we decided to go through with this. The truth was always going to come out one way or another." Emma put her phone down with a sigh. "I just hope Harold doesn't think we did this for attention or money. That would destroy any chance of building a relationship with him." "He didn't seem like the type to jump to that conclusion," Lily said thoughtfully. "He seemed genuinely moved when we talked about Mom." "Speaking of Mom," Mia said, reaching for her bag. She pulled out a worn leather journal. "I brought this. I thought we might want to read some of it tonight, to remind ourselves why we're doing this." The journal had belonged to Eleanor, a private diary she had kept for years. After her death, the sisters had discovered it among her belongings, and it had revealed the depth of their mother's feelings for Harold Spencer, a love she had carried silently for 25 years. Lily took the journal, opening it to a page marked with a faded ribbon. October 15, 1997, she read aloud. I told Harold about the breakthrough in the algorithm today. The look in his eyes when he understood what I'd done, that moment of pure intellectual connection, it made me fall even deeper. He sees me in a way no one else ever has. But tomorrow he's announcing his engagement to Diane. I should be happy for him. Instead, I'm sitting here wondering what might have been if we'd met at a different time, in different circumstances. The sisters fell silent, each lost in thoughts of the mother they had lost and the father they had just found. Outside their hotel window, the lights of the city twinkled, oblivious to the personal drama unfolding within. She really loved him, Emma said finally. All those years and she never stopped. That's why we had to find him, Mia added. For her sake as much as for ours. I just hope he's worth it, Lily whispered. I hope he's the man she always believed he was. None of them spoke the fear that lingered in the air between them, that Harold Spencer might not live up to the image their mother had carried in her heart for 25 years, and that the father they had finally found might end up being a disappointment after all. Morning light filtered through the hotel room curtains as Mia paced anxiously, checking her watch for the third time in 5 minutes. It's almost 10. He said he'd be here by 9. Give him a break, Lily said from her perch on the edge of the bed. He got married yesterday. I'm sure he has a lot to deal with. Including an angry wife, Emma added, not looking up from her laptop where she was monitoring the news. The stories everywhere now. Business Insider, Forbes, TMZ, even the New York Times has picked it up. Tech titan's wedding interrupted by secret triplet daughters. It's a PR nightmare. Mia stopped pacing. Maybe that's why he's not coming. His PR team probably advised him to stay away from us. A knock at the door silenced their speculation. Mia froze, then moved to answer it. Standing in the hallway was Harold Spencer, dressed casually in jeans and a blue button-down shirt, a stark contrast to the tuxedo he'd worn the day before. His eyes were tired with dark circles suggesting a sleepless night. I'm sorry I'm late, he said, stepping into the room when Mia moved aside. Things at home are complicated. We can imagine, Emma replied dryly, closing her laptop. How's the new wife? Harold grimaced. Not thrilled, but she's resilient. She's meeting with her publicist now, trying to get ahead of the story. We're sorry about the timing, Lily offered sincerely. We never wanted to cause a scandal. Harold shook his head. Don't apologize. If anyone should be sorry, it's me. I'm the one who missed 25 years of your lives. He looked around the room, taking in the 3 young women who were undeniably his daughters. The resemblance was striking in daylight. They had his eyes, his chin, though their coloring and the shape of their faces was all Eleanor. I brought something, he said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small, worn photograph. I found this last night, going through some old boxes. I couldn't sleep, so I was looking at memories, trying to make sense of everything. He handed the photo to Mia, who studied it with her sisters looking over her shoulders. It showed a much younger Harold and Eleanor standing together in what looked like a lab. Eleanor was laughing at something, her head tilted back, while Harold looked at her with an expression that could only be described as adoration. I remember this day, Harold said softly. We'd been working on a problem for weeks, and Eleanor finally cracked it. One of our colleagues took this photo. I'd forgotten about it until last night. She looks so happy, Lily whispered, her finger tracing her mother's face in the photograph. She was brilliant, Harold continued. One of the smartest people I've ever worked with. She saw solutions where everyone else saw obstacles. He paused, swallowing hard. I should have seen what was right in front of me, but I was so focused on building the company, on the engagement my parents had pushed me into. Why did Mom leave without telling you about us? Emma asked the question that had been haunting all three sisters since learning the truth. Harold sank into one of the room's armchairs, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. I've been asking myself that all night. I can only guess. My engagement to Diane, my first wife, was big news in the tech world back then. Her family had connections, money that my company needed. Eleanor must have seen the announcement and made her decision. But she never even gave you the chance to choose, Mia pointed out, a hint of the anger she'd harbored surfacing. She decided for you. Eleanor was always protective, Harold said. Of others, rarely of herself. She probably thought she was protecting me, my future. He looked up at the triplets. But she was wrong. I would have wanted to know about you. I would have wanted to be part of your lives. You can't know that for sure, Emma challenged, always the most skeptical of the three. The Harold Spencer of today might feel that way, but the ambitious young entrepreneur with everything to lose, he might have made a different choice. Harold didn't flinch from her assessment. You might be right. I was different then, driven, single-minded, but I'd like to think that even then I would have done right by Eleanor and by you three. He leaned forward, his expression serious. But what matters now is what we do going forward. I've missed 25 years, but I don't want to miss any more. If you'll let me, I want to be part of your lives. The triplets exchanged glances, their silent communication at work again. What exactly are you proposing? Mia asked, ever practical. For starters, I'd like to spend time with each of you, get to know you individually as well as together. I want to hear about your childhoods, your interests, your dreams. He hesitated. And if you're open to it, I'd like you to meet my son, your half-brother. William is 22 in his final year at Princeton. You have a son? Lily's eyes widened. We have a brother? Harold nodded. From my first marriage. Diane and I divorced when William was 10. He lives with me when he's not at school. Does he know about us? Emma asked. I called him last night, told him everything. He was shocked, of course, but also curious. He's always wanted siblings. Mia sat on the edge of the bed, processing this new information. This is a lot to take in. Yesterday we were three sisters who had just lost their mother. Today we have a father, a half-brother, and a stepmother who probably hates us. Victoria doesn't hate you, Harold assured them, though his tone lacked conviction. She's just adjusting to the situation. This isn't how she imagined starting our marriage. I can't imagine it is, Lily said sympathetically. We should apologize to her properly. That might be a good start, Harold agreed. But give her some time. Victoria is proud, and she feels blindsided. He stood up, moving to the window to look out at the city below. In the meantime, I'd like to invite you all to dinner tonight, at my home. William is flying in this afternoon specifically to meet you. The sisters exchanged another series of glances, a silent conversation happening in seconds. We'd like that, Mia answered for all of them. What time should we be there? 7 would be perfect. I'll send a car for you. Harold turned back to face them. There's one more thing I wanted to discuss. Your mother's medical bills. I understand from what you said yesterday that her illness was prolonged. It was? Emma confirmed, her lawyer's suspicion evident in her tone. The hospital bills were substantial. We've been managing them, splitting the payments between us. I'd like to take care of that, Harold said firmly. All of it. It's the least I can do. We don't need your money, Mia replied quickly, her pride rising to the surface. We're doing fine on our own. Harold approached her, stopping just short of reaching out to touch her arm, a gesture he seemed to think better of. I know you don't need it. That's clear from the accomplished women you've become. But please let me do this for Eleanor. She raised my children without asking me for a penny. The least I can do is make sure her debts don't burden you. Lily, always the most compassionate of the three, nodded. I think Mom would appreciate that. She never wanted us to worry about money, even at the end when the bills were piling up. Mia and Emma exchanged glances, a silent debate passing between them before Emma finally nodded. "Fine," Mia conceded, "but just the medical bills. Nothing else." "Fair enough," Harold agreed. He checked his watch, a subtle gesture that didn't go unnoticed. "I should go. There's a lot to arrange before dinner tonight." "Including breaking the news to Victoria that we're coming to your house?" Emma guessed. Harold's slight wince confirmed her suspicion. "Victoria will be cordial. She understands the importance of family." "Even family that shows up uninvited and ruins her wedding?" Mia asked with a hint of a smile. "Especially then," Harold replied, matching her tone. "She's resilient, as I said, and she knew what she was getting into, marrying someone with my public profile. Scandals come with the territory." As Harold prepared to leave, Lily suddenly stepped forward. "Wait," she said, her voice soft but determined. "There's something you should have." She went to her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Mom wrote this for you in her final days. She made us promise to give it to you if we ever found you." Harold took the paper with reverent care, as if it might disintegrate at his touch. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'll read it when I'm alone." After Harold left, the triplets sat in silence for a moment, each processing what had just occurred. "So we're having dinner with our long-lost father, our new half-brother, and our stepmother who probably wants us dead," Emma summarized. "Just a typical Monday." "At least he seems sincere," Lily offered optimistically. "And he wants to be part of our lives." "For now," Mia cautioned, always the most guarded of the three. "Let's see what happens when the media attention dies down and reality sets in. Having 3 adult daughters suddenly appear is a novelty. But long-term, that's a different story." "I'm curious about William," Lily admitted. "A brother. That's something I never imagined we'd have." "Half-brother," Emma corrected automatically. "And who knows what he really thinks about all this?"
Harold said he was curious, but he could just as easily be resentful. "We're essentially strangers laying claim to his father." "We're not laying claim to anything," Mia argued. "We just wanted the truth to be known." "And now it is," Lily said with finality. "For better or worse, Harold Spencer is our father, and he wants to know us. That's more than I dared hope for when we planned this." As the sisters began preparing for the dinner ahead, across town in his penthouse apartment, Harold Spencer sat alone in his study, Eleanor's letter unfolded before him. Tears streamed down his face as he read her final words to him, words filled with a love that had never died, and explanations for choices made long ago. Outside the study door, Victoria paced, her wedding ring still new and strange on her finger, wondering how the perfect life she had planned had gone so spectacularly off course in less than 24 hours. The Spencer mansion stood on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic, a modern masterpiece of glass and steel that seemed to float above the ocean. As the chauffeured car wound its way up the private drive, the triplets sat in silence, each lost in her own thoughts. They had spent the afternoon shopping for appropriate dinner attire, using some of their carefully saved money to purchase outfits that wouldn't look too out of place in a billionaire's home. "This is intimidating," Lily admitted, breaking the silence as the mansion came into full view. "I knew he was wealthy, but this is another level." "Remember, we're not here for his money," Mia said firmly, smoothing down her navy blue dress. "We're here to establish a relationship, nothing more." "Speak for yourself," Emma joked, trying to lighten the mood. "I plan to ask for a yacht." When her sisters shot her alarmed looks, she rolled her eyes. "I'm kidding, obviously." The car pulled up to the entrance where Harold was waiting for them. He looked more rested than he had that morning, dressed in casual but clearly expensive clothes. His smile seemed genuine as he opened the car door. "Welcome," he said, helping them out one by one. "I'm glad you could come." "Thank you for having us," Lily replied politely, her eyes darting around the imposing entrance.
Harold led them through massive glass doors into a foyer that could have housed their entire Boston apartment. The interior was minimalist but warm, with rich woods balancing the steel and glass. Art pieces that looked museum-worthy adorned the walls. "Your home is beautiful," Mia commented, taking it all in. "Thank you. Victoria has an excellent eye for design," Harold replied, a hint of something, tension perhaps, in his voice when he mentioned his wife. "William is waiting in the living room. He's a bit nervous, so go easy on him." They followed Harold through a corridor that opened into a vast living space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. A young man stood by the windows, hands stuffed into the pockets of his chinos, his posture betraying his anxiety. He turned as they entered, and the resemblance to Harold was immediately apparent, though William was taller, leaner, with a mop of dark hair that fell across his forehead. "William," Harold said, "these are your sisters, Mia, Lily, and Emma." William's eyes widened slightly as he took in the three identical women before him. "Wow," he said, then immediately looked embarrassed. "I mean, hi, it's nice to meet you. Dad told me everything. It's a lot to process, but, well, I've always wanted siblings." "Half-siblings," Emma corrected automatically, then bit her lip when Lily elbowed her. "We're happy to meet you too," Lily said warmly, stepping forward to shake William's hand. Mia and Emma followed suit. "This is surreal," William admitted with a nervous laugh. "Yesterday I was an only child. Today I have 3 older sisters who are triplets. It's like something out of a movie." "Tell me about it," Mia agreed. "Our lives have been pretty surreal since Mom told us about Harold, your dad, 3 months ago." An awkward silence fell, broken by Harold clapping his hands together once. "How about a drink before dinner? Wine? Something stronger?" They all agreed on wine, and Harold poured from a bottle that probably cost more than the sisters made in a month. As they sipped, the initial tension began to ease, and they moved to sit in the seating area overlooking the ocean. "So, Princeton?" Emma asked William, making an effort at normal conversation. "What are you studying?" "Computer science and economics," he replied. "I'm hoping to join Dad's company after graduation, though I want to earn my place, not just have it handed to me because of my name." "That's admirable," Mia said sincerely. "I actually work in tech, too. Maybe we can compare notes sometime." William's face lit up. "I'd like that. Dad mentioned you're at a startup in Boston. What kind of work do you do there?" As Mia described her job developing security software, Harold watched the interaction with a mixture of joy and melancholy. These were his children, getting to know each other for the first time. A moment he should have witnessed decades earlier. The sound of heels clicking on marble interrupted their conversation. Victoria entered the room, a vision in a simple but undoubtedly expensive black dress, her blonde hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. Her smile was professional, the kind she might offer at a business dinner with people she needed to impress but didn't particularly like. "Our guests have arrived," she said, stepping to Harold's side and slipping her arm through his. "Welcome to our home." The triplets stood, suddenly awkward again in the presence of the woman whose wedding they had disrupted. "Thank you for having us," Lily said, always the diplomatic one. "Your home is stunning." "Thank you," Victoria replied coolly. "Harold mentioned you wanted to speak with me? Something about an apology?" Emma and Mia exchanged glances at her directness, but Lily stepped forward. "Yes, we wanted to apologize for the timing of our revelation. We never intended to ruin your wedding day. We tried contacting Harold through proper channels for months, but our messages were blocked by his staff. The wedding was our last resort." Victoria's expression remained neutral. "And yet, of all moments during the wedding, you chose the reception, in front of hundreds of guests, to make your announcement. Not before the ceremony, not after the celebrations, but during the height of our wedding reception." "We needed to be heard," Mia said, a hint of defensiveness in her tone. "And we needed witnesses who would make it impossible for our existence to be denied or swept under the rug." "So it was a calculated move," Victoria concluded. a hint of satisfaction in her voice at having her suspicions confirmed. "Victoria," Harold interjected, a warning in his tone. "They're here as our guests, our family." Victoria's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Of course, darling. I'm simply trying to understand their thinking." She turned her attention back to the triplets. "Dinner will be served soon. Shall we move to the dining room?" The dining room, like the rest of the house, was a study in understated luxury. A long table of dark wood dominated the space, set with fine china and crystal. The sisters took their seats, Mia noting that Victoria had placed them all on one side of the table, with herself, Harold, and William on the other, a subtle but clear division. As the first course was served by silent, efficient staff, Victoria took control of the conversation. "So, I understand you three are quite accomplished in your respective fields. Harold tells me you're a software engineer, Mia, and Lily, a pediatrician, Emma, an environmental lawyer. Your mother must have been quite remarkable to raise three such successful daughters on her own." "She was," Lily agreed, her voice soft with emotion. "She sacrificed everything for us. And yet she never sought financial support from Harold," Victoria continued, sipping her wine, even though she clearly knew who he was and how successful he'd become. "That's quite unusual, don't you think?" "Mom wasn't interested in money," Emma replied, a defensive edge to her voice. "She wanted us to make our own way in the world, not rely on someone else's success." "A noble sentiment," Victoria agreed, though her tone suggested she found it naive. "And now? Are you interested in Harold's financial support now that your mother is gone?" "Victoria," Harold said sharply, "that's enough." "It's a fair question," Victoria countered, "one I'm sure many people will be asking given the circumstances of their appearance." "We're not here for money," Mia stated firmly, placing her fork down with deliberate care. "We have careers, lives of our own. We came here because our mother's dying wish was for us to know our father, and for him to know about us. Nothing more." William, who had been watching the exchange with growing discomfort, suddenly spoke up. "I believe them, Victoria. Not everyone is motivated by money or status." Victoria turned her cool gaze to her stepson. "Of course, William. I'm simply doing what any protective wife would do, ensuring your father isn't being taken advantage of. I'm perfectly capable of making those determinations myself," Harold said, his patience clearly wearing thin. "Now, can we please enjoy our dinner as a family?" The tension eased somewhat as they moved to safer topics. The sisters' childhoods, William's experiences at Princeton, Harold's early career. Victoria said little, observing the growing connection between Harold and his newly discovered children with a careful, calculating eye. When dessert was served, an elaborate confection that none of the sisters could identify but all found delicious, Harold cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since yesterday," he began, setting down his spoon, "about time lost and how we might make up for it." He looked at each of the triplets in turn. "I want to establish a trust for each of you. Nothing extravagant, but enough to eliminate any student debt you might have. Provide a down payment for a home if you don't already own one, and create a cushion that allows you to pursue your passions without financial constraint." Victoria's spine stiffened visibly, but she remained silent, her expression carefully neutral. "That's not necessary," Mia began, but Harold held up a hand to stop her. "It's not about necessity," he said gently. "It's about what's right. I missed contributing to your upbringing, to your education. This is a small way to make amends for that absence." "What about Mom's medical bills?" Emma asked. "You already offered to cover those this morning." "That's separate," Harold assured her. "Those will be taken care of immediately. The trusts would be for your futures." The sisters exchanged glances, their silent communication working overtime. Finally, Lily spoke for all of them. "We appreciate the offer, truly. But we need time to think about it. This is all happening very quickly." Harold nodded in understanding. "Of course, there's no rush. I just wanted you to know that I'm committed to being part of your lives now, in whatever way you'll allow." "And what about your company?" Victoria asked, breaking her silence. "Will you be updating your will and succession plans as well? After all, you now have 4 children instead of 1. The question hung in the air like a blade, the implication clear. William looked down at his plate, a flush creeping up his neck. "Those are private matters, Victoria," Harold replied evenly, though his eyes had hardened. "And they'll be addressed in private at the appropriate time." Victoria nodded, taking a sip of her wine. "Of course, darling. I just want to ensure all potential complications are considered." After dinner, Harold suggested they move to the terrace for coffee. The night was clear, the ocean visible under a nearly full moon. As Victoria excused herself to take a call, claiming it was from her publicist regarding their situation, the atmosphere immediately lightened. William, who had been reserved throughout dinner, visibly relaxed once Victoria was gone. "I'm sorry about that," he said quietly to the sisters. "Victoria can be protective." "It's understandable," Lily said generously. "We did disrupt her wedding." "Still," William insisted, "your family, my sisters." He smiled, the word clearly new and pleasant on his tongue. "I've always wanted siblings to share things with. The Spencer name can be isolating." As William and the triplets began to talk more freely, Harold watched from a few feet away, his expression a mixture of joy and regret. The children he'd never known he had were bonding with the son he'd raised, creating connections that should have existed for decades. And in that moment, as the ocean breeze carried the sound of their laughter, he made a silent vow to Eleanor that he would protect these bonds, no matter the cost. The morning after their dinner at the Spencer mansion, the triplets woke to a reality they were still struggling to comprehend. Their hotel suite, luxurious by their standards just days before, now seemed modest in comparison to the opulence they had witnessed the night before. But it wasn't the material contrast that occupied their thoughts as they shared breakfast on the small balcony overlooking the city. "William seems nice," Lily said, breaking the contemplative silence. "I wasn't expecting that. I thought he might resent us." "He's young," Emma replied, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. 22 is still idealistic. Give him time to realize we might threaten his inheritance." "Not everyone is as cynical as you, Em," Mia countered. "Maybe he genuinely wants siblings. Being an only child can be lonely, especially in that kind of lifestyle." Emma raised an eyebrow. "And how would you know? We've always had each other." Before Mia could respond, her phone buzzed with a text. She checked it, then looked up at her sisters. "It's from Harold. He wants to meet me for lunch. Just me." "Divide and conquer," Emma murmured, though there was less suspicion in her tone than there might have been before last night's dinner. "Or maybe he wants to get to know us individually," Lily suggested. "It makes sense. We're different people, even if we look the same." Mia typed a quick response, agreeing to meet Harold at the restaurant he suggested. "What will you two do while I'm gone?" "I actually got a text from William," Lily admitted with a small smile. "He asked if I wanted to see his photography exhibit at a downtown gallery. Apparently it's his passion outside of computers and economics." Emma looked between her sisters, feeling suddenly excluded. "Great! While you two are bonding with your new family, I'll just hang out here alone." "Actually," Lily began hesitantly, "William mentioned that Victoria wanted to speak with you. Privately." Emma nearly choked on her coffee. "Victoria? Why me?" "According to William, she was impressed by your directness at dinner. She said you remind her of herself when she was younger." "That's disturbing," Emma replied, though curiosity flickered in her eyes. "Did she say what she wants to talk about?" Lily shook her head. "No, but William gave me her private number if you want to reach out." Emma took the napkin where Lily had scribbled the number, staring at it thoughtfully. "Maybe I will. Know thy enemy, right?" 3 hours later, Mia sat across from Harold in a quiet corner of an upscale restaurant, feeling both out of place in her simple dress and strangely at ease with the man she now knew to be her father. They had covered the basics during the first course: how the sisters had grown up, their education, Mia's early interest in computers that had led to her career in cybersecurity. "You really are like me," Harold said, studying her with a mixture of wonder and sadness. "Eleanor used to say I could lose myself in code for days, emerging only when I'd solved whatever problem was obsessing me." "Mom used to say the same about me," Mia admitted. "She'd leave sandwiches outside my door during high school when I was working on a project." Harold smiled, though pain flickered behind his eyes. "I've been reading about your work. The encryption algorithm you developed for your company is impressive. Innovative." Mia couldn't hide her surprise. "You researched me?" "All three of you," Harold confirmed. "After you left last night, I couldn't sleep. I wanted to know everything about you to make up for lost time." "And what did you learn?" Mia asked, curious about what digital footprint her life had left. "That you're brilliant, dedicated, and fiercely protective of your sisters. That you took the lead in caring for your mother during her illness while maintaining your career. That you've turned down more lucrative positions at larger companies because you believe in the mission of your current startup." Harold leaned forward. "In short, I learned that Eleanor raised an extraordinary woman. 3 of them, in fact." Mia felt a flush of pleasure at his words, though she tried to remain objective. "You make it sound more impressive than it is. We did what anyone would do." "No," Harold said firmly. "Not everyone would have handled what you've been through with such grace and determination. I'm proud of you, Mia. I hope you'll allow me to say that, even though I had no part in shaping the woman you've become." Something in his sincerity broke through a wall Mia hadn't realized she'd built. "Thank you," she said softly. "That means more than I expected it to." Harold seemed to make a decision then, reaching into his jacket pocket. "I'd like to show you something." He pulled out Eleanor's letter, now carefully refolded. "This is what your mother wrote to me before she died. I think you should read it." Mia took the letter with trembling fingers. "Are you sure?" "It was meant for you." "I'm sure," Harold nodded. "Eleanor would want you to understand why she made the choices she did." Mia unfolded the paper, recognizing her mother's handwriting immediately, once elegant but made shaky by illness in her final days. "Harold, if you're reading this, our daughters have found you. I've asked them to seek you out if I don't survive this illness, though I confess I've struggled with that decision. For 25 years, I've kept them from you. A choice I made believing it was best for everyone, especially you. When I discovered I was pregnant, your engagement to Diane had just been announced. Your face was on the cover of every tech magazine, your company on the verge of the breakthrough that would make you a billionaire. A pregnant research assistant would have been a scandal you didn't need, a complication in the perfect life you were building. At least, that's what I told myself. The truth, which I can admit now as my life draws to a close, is that I was afraid. Afraid you would reject us, or worse, offer financial support but want nothing to do with us emotionally. I couldn't bear either possibility, so I made the choice for all of us. I realize now that was unfair to you and to our girls. They deserved to know their father, and you deserved to know them. They are extraordinary, Harold, brilliant, compassionate, strong in ways I never had to be. Mia, with her sharp mind and protective nature, Lily, with her infinite capacity for empathy, Emma, with her fierce sense of justice. They are the best of both of us, and my greatest accomplishment. I don't ask for your forgiveness. What I did was unforgivable. But I do ask that you get to know them, if they'll allow it. Love them as I have, and help them understand that my decision came from a place of love and fear, not malice. I have never stopped loving you, Harold. In another life, perhaps things could have been different for us. But in this one, our legacy is 3 remarkable women who deserve to know their father. Always, Eleanor Mia folded the letter carefully, tears blurring her vision. She handed it back to Harold,
who looked equally moved. "She never stopped loving you," Mia said quietly, "even after all those years." "And I never really forgot her," Harold replied, his voice rough with emotion. "There were moments, throughout my marriage to Diane, even during the early years with Victoria, when I would wonder what happened to Eleanor Morgan, the brilliant woman who disappeared from my life without explanation." Across town, in an airy downtown gallery, Lily walked beside William, admiring his photography displayed on the stark white walls. His work was surprisingly good, black and white urban landscapes that captured moments of unexpected beauty in overlooked places. "You have a real talent," Lily said sincerely, studying a photograph of an elderly couple sitting on a park bench, their hands intertwined, pigeons gathered at their feet. "This one especially. There's so much tenderness in it." William ducked his head, pleased but embarrassed by the praise. "Thanks. Photography is my escape from the Spencer legacy. When I'm behind the camera, I'm just William, not Harold Spencer's son and heir." "I understand that need for an identity separate from your family," Lily responded. "Even among triplets, it's important to be seen as an individual." William nodded, then hesitated before speaking again. "Can I ask you something personal about our father?" "Of course," Lily replied, though she felt a flutter of anxiety at the sudden seriousness in his tone. Has he ever shown you the letter? The one your mother wrote to him?" Lily's eyes widened in surprise. "No, I know Mia is having lunch with him today, but he hasn't shared it with me or Emma yet." William's expression was unreadable. "He showed it to me last night, after you all left. He was different afterward. Emotional in a way I've rarely seen him." He paused. "Whatever your mother wrote, it affected him deeply. I think it's changed how he sees his whole life." Meanwhile, in a private lounge at an exclusive women's club, Emma sat across from Victoria Spencer, trying to read the inscrutable expression of the woman who was, technically, her stepmother. Victoria had suggested the meeting place, a sanctuary where business deals and social alliances were formed among Manhattan's elite women. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me," Victoria said, sipping a flute of champagne. Unlike the cool politeness she'd displayed at dinner, there was a directness to her now that Emma found easier to address. "I was curious," Emma admitted. "It's not every day your new stepmother requests a private audience after you've ruined her wedding." To Emma's surprise, Victoria laughed, a genuine sound that softened her features momentarily. "You're refreshingly blunt, a quality we share, it seems." "So William mentioned," Emma replied cautiously, "though I'm not sure that's a compliment." "It is, from me," Victoria assured her. "In my world, our world I suppose I should say now, people rarely say what they mean. There are layers of artifice, hidden agendas. It's exhausting." "And yet you thrive in it," Emma observed. "From what I've read, you were a formidable businesswoman before marrying Harold." Victoria inclined her head slightly, acknowledging the point. "I've learned to navigate these waters, which brings me to why I wanted to speak with you privately." She set down her champagne, her expression turning serious. "Harold is a good man, but he can be naive when it comes to matters of the heart. He wants to believe the best of people, especially those he cares about." "Like his long-lost daughters?" Emma guessed, her guard rising. "Like anyone who might have a claim on his affection or his fortune," Victoria replied smoothly. "I'm not suggesting you and your sisters are here for his money. Your careers speak for themselves. But Harold's sudden desire to establish trusts for you, to change his will, to restructure his charitable foundation to include causes you care about, all within days of meeting you, concerns me." Emma blinked in surprise. "His charitable foundation? He hasn't mentioned anything about that to us." "No, he wouldn't have. Not yet." Victoria studied Emma carefully. "He spent most of last night on his laptop, researching pediatric cancer charities for Lily,
cybersecurity education initiatives for Mia, and environmental law clinics for you. He's planning to announce major donations to each at the gala next week."
"Gala?"
Emma repeated, feeling increasingly out of her depth. "The annual Spencer Foundation Gala, one of the biggest charity events of the season." Victoria sipped her champagne again. "Harold wants to introduce you three publicly as his daughters, to all of New York society, to his business associates, to everyone who matters in our world." Emma's revelation about the gala sent ripples through the Triplets' quiet hotel suite that evening. Gathered around the small dining table with takeout containers between them, they shared what they'd learned during their separate meetings. "A gala?" Mia repeated, setting down her chopsticks. "He wants to introduce us to everyone. Make it official." "That's what Victoria said," Emma confirmed. She seemed concerned about how quickly he's moving with all this. The trusts, changing his will, the charitable donations in our names. "William mentioned the gala, too," Lily added. "He said it's a huge event. Celebrities, politicians, business leaders, everyone who's anyone in New York attends. And now he wants to parade us around like his newly discovered heiresses," Emma said, her expression troubled. "It's too fast. Too public. Maybe he's just excited," Lily suggested, ever the optimist. "He missed 25 years with us. Perhaps he's trying to make up for lost time." Mia, who had been quiet, finally spoke. "He showed me Mom's letter today." She met her sister's surprised gazes. It was intense. She loved him, right until the end. And she regretted not telling him about us. "What exactly did the letter say?" Emma asked. Mia recounted the contents as best she could remember, the raw emotion in Eleanor's final words to the man she had loved from afar for over 2 decades. When she finished, the sisters sat in silence, absorbing the implications. "She was protecting him," Lily said softly. "All those years, we thought she was just being strong, raising us alone, but she was actually sacrificing her own happiness for his career." "Or she was afraid of rejection," Emma countered, always the most pragmatic. "She said it herself in the letter." "Either way," Mia interjected, "I think reading that letter changed something in Harold. William told Lily the same thing. This isn't just about duty or guilt for him. He genuinely wants to connect with us. And Victoria is worried about how that connection might affect her position," Emma added, recalling her conversation with their new stepmother. "She didn't say it outright, but I got the sense she's concerned about her influence over Harold now that we're in the picture." "So what do we do?" Lily asked, looking between her sisters. "About the gala, the trusts, all of it?" Mia considered for a moment. "I think we need to talk to Harold directly. Tell him we appreciate his enthusiasm, but ask him to slow down. We need time to adjust to all this, too." "Agreed," Emma said. "And we should be clear about boundaries. I'm not looking to be a Spencer heiress or to have my name attached to some charity I've never worked with." Lily nodded reluctantly. "It does feel like we're being absorbed into his world rather than meeting somewhere in the middle." As if summoned by their discussion, Mia's phone rang. Harold's name flashed on the screen. She answered, putting it on speaker so her sisters could hear. "Mia?" Harold's voice came through, sounding excited. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "Not at all," Mia replied, shooting her sisters a look. "I'm here with Lily and Emma. You're on speaker." "Perfect. I wanted to speak with all of you anyway." There was a rustling of papers on his end. "I've been thinking about how to introduce you properly to our wider circle. The annual Spencer Foundation Gala is next Friday, and it's the perfect opportunity. Everyone who matters will be there." The sisters exchanged glances. Emma raised an eyebrow as if to say, "See? Just like Victoria said." "That sounds very public," Mia replied carefully. "It is, but that's the point," Harold continued enthusiastically. "I want everyone to know you're my daughters. No hiding, no ambiguity. The Spencer family has 3 new members, and I'm proud of that fact." "Harold," Emma interjected, using his first name deliberately, While we appreciate the sentiment, don't you think this is moving rather quickly? We've only known each other for 2 days. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I suppose it might seem that way to you, Harold admitted, his tone sobering. But for me, it feels like I'm already 25 years behind. I don't want to waste any more time. We understand that, Lily said gently. But this is a big adjustment for us too. Being thrust into the spotlight, into your world, it's overwhelming. Not to mention, Mia added, that we have careers, lives in Boston. We can't just drop everything to become part of the Spencer social circuit. Another pause, longer this time. I hadn't considered that, Harold said finally, a note of disappointment clear in his voice. I just assumed. But you're right, of course. You have your own lives. I'm being selfish. The sisters felt a collective pang of guilt at his deflated tone. It's not that we don't want to know you better, Lily clarified quickly. We do. That's why we sought you out in the first place. We just need to find a balance that works for everyone. What if, Mia suggested, we attend the gala, but you introduce us more gradually? Maybe to just a few close friends and family first, rather than announcing us to the entire New York elite at once. Hope returned to Harold's voice. That could work. I could host a small dinner before the gala, introduce you to a select group. William would be there, of course, and a few of my oldest friends who knew me when I worked with Eleanor. That sounds more manageable, Emma agreed, though her expression remained cautious. There's something else, Harold continued, his tone shifting to something more tentative. I've been in touch with my lawyers about the trusts I mentioned. They've drawn up preliminary papers. Nothing would be finalized without your approval, of course, but I'd like you to review them when you're ready. The sisters exchanged another round of glances, their silent communication working overtime. We appreciate the offer, Mia replied for all of them, but we still need time to think about that aspect of our relationship. The financial component isn't why we sought you out. I understand, Harold said, though there was a hint of something, hurt, disappointment, in his tone. Just know that the offer stands. Not because I think you need my money, but because I want to do right by you after being absent for so long. After they hung up, the sisters sat in contemplative silence. He really is trying, Lily said finally, in his own way. His own very wealthy, very public way, Emma added, though there was less skepticism in her voice than before. Mia stood pacing the small living area of their suite. We need to be careful here. This isn't just about us anymore. There's William to consider, and Victoria, and Harold's public image. One wrong move and this whole situation could explode into an even bigger media circus than it already is. Speaking of which, Emma said, reaching for her laptop, have you seen this? She turned the screen to show her sisters a headline from a notorious gossip site. Spencer triplets, gold diggers, or legitimate heirs. Sources close to the family question timing of surprise daughter's appearance. Fantastic, Mia groaned. Let me guess, sources close to the family means Victoria's camp? Not necessarily, Lily countered. It could be anyone at the wedding. Hundreds of people witnessed our confrontation. Emma scrolled through the article. It gets worse. They're digging into Mom's past, questioning why she never pursued child support, implying she might have been having affairs with multiple men and wasn't sure who our father really was. That's disgusting, Lily said, her face flushing with anger. Mom was the most ethical person we knew. She would never— It doesn't matter what's true, Mia interrupted, her expression grim. The narrative is already being shaped and not in our favor. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Emma closed her laptop. We need to get ahead of this. If Harold is determined to introduce us at that gala, we need to make sure our side of the story is clear. Maybe Victoria could help, Lily suggested, earning surprised looks from her sisters. I mean, she's experienced with this kind of public relations situation, isn't she? As Harold's wife, she has a vested interest in making sure the Spencer name isn't dragged through the mud. That's not a terrible idea, Emma admitted reluctantly. Based on our conversation today, I think Victoria is more pragmatic than malicious. She might be willing to help manage the narrative if it benefits her too. The next morning brought a new complication. As the sisters were finishing breakfast, a knock at their door revealed a courier with 3 identical boxes. Inside each was an evening gown from a designer they recognized only from magazines, along with a note in Harold's handwriting. For the gala. Custom made based on your measurements. Hope you like them. H. How does he know our measurements? Lily wondered, holding up an emerald green gown that precisely matched her size. The better question is, when did he order these? Emma said, examining her own midnight blue creation. The gala is still a week away and we only met him 3 days ago. Mia was examining her champagne-colored dress with a frown. Either he worked miraculously fast with a designer or he ordered these before even meeting us, Emma finished for her, a troubled expression crossing her face. Which means he was planning to bring us into his world from the very beginning before he knew anything about us beyond our existence. That's presumptuous, Lily said, struggling to find the right word, but also kind of sweet. He wanted to make us feel welcome. By buying our compliance with expensive gifts? Emma countered. I don't think that's fair, Lily defended. Maybe he just didn't want us to feel out of place at an event where everyone else will be wearing couture. Mia set her dress back in its box carefully. Whatever his intention, we need to be clear about boundaries. I'll call him later to thank him, but also to reiterate that we need to take things slowly. Another knock at the door interrupted their discussion. This time it was William, looking slightly uncomfortable in the hallway. Sorry to drop by unannounced, he said, shifting from foot to foot. But I thought you should know. Dad's having some kind of disagreement with Victoria about you 3. It got pretty heated this morning. What kind of disagreement? Mia asked, inviting him in. William stepped inside, his expression troubled. Victoria thinks Dad is moving too fast, trying to integrate you into the family without considering the implications. Dad says she's being possessive and suspicious. I've never seen them fight like this before. He ran a hand through his hair. The thing is, I think they're both right, in different ways. Dad is rushing things because he feels guilty about missing your lives. Victoria is worried about protecting the family reputation, and probably her position. And where do you stand in all this? Emma asked directly. William met her gaze without hesitation. With you 3, actually. I think everyone needs to slow down and get to know each other as people first, not as positions in some family dynasty. He offered a small smile. I like having sisters. I don't want this situation to implode before I've had a chance to really know you. His sincerity was disarming. Even Emma, the most suspicious of the 3, felt her defenses softening. We feel the same way, Lily assured him. We're not interested in the Spencer fortune or status. We just wanted to know our father, and by extension, you. Then maybe we should all tell Dad that together, William suggested. He might listen if it's coming from all 4 of his children. Harold Spencer's private office occupied the entire top floor of the Spencer Technologies headquarters, a gleaming skyscraper in Midtown Manhattan. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the city, a testament to how far he had come from the small startup he'd founded in his garage nearly 3 decades ago. But today, the view was the last thing on his mind as he faced all 4 of his children, seated in a semicircle before his massive desk. William had called an hour earlier, asking for an urgent family meeting. Family. The word still sent a jolt through Harold's system when he applied it to Mia, Lily, and Emma, his daughters. For 25 years, family had meant just William, and before him, a loveless marriage to Diane that had collapsed under the weight of his workaholism and her resentment. Now, looking at the 4 young adults before him, William with his earnest expression, Mia with her analytical gaze so like his own, Lily with her compassionate eyes, and Emma with her guarded posture, Harold felt a surge of emotion he couldn't quite name. Pride, anxiety, joy, perhaps all three. "So," he said, breaking the silence that had settled over them after the initial pleasantries, "William said this was important. I'm listening." The siblings exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them that surprised Harold. Despite having known each other for only days, the triplets and William seemed to have formed a genuine connection. "Dad," William began, taking the lead as they had agreed. "We've been talking, all four of us. And while we appreciate everything you're trying to do to welcome Mia, Lily, and Emma into the family, we're concerned that things are moving too quickly." Harold's brow furrowed. "Too quickly? But we've already lost so much time." "That's just it," Mia said, leaning forward slightly. "You can't make up for 25 years in a week. Pushing too hard, too fast might damage the relationship we're trying to build." "The gowns, for instance," Emma added. "They're beautiful and we appreciate the gesture, but they also make us feel like you're trying to transform us into something we're not. Society heiresses ready to take our place in the Spencer dynasty." Harold looked taken aback. "That wasn't my intention at all. I just wanted you to feel comfortable at the gala, to fit in with that world." "But that's not our world," Lily said gently. "We didn't grow up with galas and designer dresses. We grew up in a modest apartment in Boston with a single mother who worked multiple jobs to give us opportunities. And we're proud of that upbringing," Mia added firmly. "We don't want to pretend to be something we're not, even to make your social circle more comfortable with our existence." Harold sat back in his chair, absorbing their words. For a moment, he looked older, the weight of his mistakes evident in the lines of his face. "I've been trying to force you into a mold," he said finally. "Just like my father did to me. I didn't even realize I was doing it." "You were excited," William offered, his tone conciliatory. "You wanted to make up for lost time." "That's no excuse," Harold replied, shaking his head. "I should have asked what you wanted, not assumed I knew best." He looked directly at the triplets. "I'm sorry, truly. This is all new to me, and I'm making mistakes." The sincerity in his voice disarmed the sisters, even Emma, who had been the most skeptical of his intentions. "We understand," Lily assured him. "This is new for all of us. We just need to find a pace that works for everyone." Harold nodded slowly. "So, no gala introduction? No trusts? No charitable foundation adjustments?" "Not no," Mia clarified. "Just not yet. Maybe we start smaller. The dinner you mentioned with close friends sounds more manageable. As for the financial aspects, we appreciate the gesture, but we'd rather focus on building a personal relationship first." "And the gowns?" Harold asked, a hint of his earlier enthusiasm returning. "They were commissioned from a designer who works exclusively for our family. But if they make you uncomfortable..." The sisters exchanged glances again. "They are beautiful," Lily admitted with a small smile. "Maybe we could save them for a more appropriate occasion? When we're ready for a more public introduction?" Harold's face brightened. "Of course. Whenever you're ready." He stood and moved around his desk to be closer to them, no longer the powerful CEO but simply a father trying to connect with his children. "I want to do this right, all of it. Whatever pace you need, whatever boundaries you want to set, just tell me." "There's something else we should discuss," Emma said, her lawyer's directness coming to the fore. "The media situation. There's already a negative story circulating about us, questioning our motives and even our mother's character." Harold's expression darkened. "I saw that. My PR team is preparing a statement condemning the speculation and affirming that DNA tests have confirmed you are my daughters." "Is that wise?" William asked. "Engaging with gossip might just fuel more stories." "Perhaps," Harold conceded. "But I won't have Eleanor's reputation smeared. She deserves better than that." A knock at the door interrupted their conversation. Victoria entered without waiting for a response, her expression carefully neutral as she surveyed the gathering. "I'm sorry to interrupt your family meeting," she said, her emphasis on family subtle but unmissable. "But the governor is on line 1. He says it's urgent regarding the tech initiative legislation." Harold looked torn, the demands of his business empire clashing with his desire to continue this crucial conversation with his children. "Take the call," Mia said, standing. "We've said what we needed to say. We can talk more later." The others stood as well, preparing to leave, but Harold hesitated. "Are you sure? This conversation feels more important than legislative details." "We're sure," Lily assured him. "Besides, we have plans with William this afternoon." This was news to William, whose surprise showed briefly before he caught on and nodded enthusiastically. "Right, I'm giving them a tour of my favorite spots in the city." As they filed out of the office, Victoria held back, placing a hand on Harold's arm. "We need to talk later," she said quietly. "About all of this." Harold nodded distractedly, his eyes still on his children's retreating forms. Outside the Spencer Technologies building, the siblings found themselves standing together on the busy sidewalk, momentarily unsure of their next move. "So, about those plans we supposedly have," William said with a grin. "Any ideas? I really would be happy to show you around." "I'd like that," Lily replied warmly. "I've only been to New York once before for a medical conference, and I didn't get to see much beyond the hotel and convention center." "Actually," Emma interjected, checking her phone, "I should probably head back to the hotel. I have a video call with my office in an hour. They're being understanding about this family emergency, but I do need to check in. And I promised to review some code for a colleague," Mia added reluctantly. "It's due tomorrow." William looked disappointed but understanding. "Real-life calls, huh? Rain check then? Maybe dinner tonight instead?" Before they could agree, a flash went off nearby. A man with a professional camera was rapidly taking photos of them from across the street. "Is that?" Lily began. "Paparazzi," William confirmed grimly, stepping slightly in front of his sisters in a protective gesture. "Welcome to life as a Spencer. Let's get you a cab back to your hotel before more show up." As William hailed a taxi, Emma glanced over her shoulder at the photographer, who was now talking on his phone, likely alerting others to their location. "Is it always like this for you?" she asked William. He shrugged, a practiced nonchalance that didn't quite mask his discomfort. "On and off. It gets worse when there's a story attached to the Spencer name, like now with you three showing up. It'll die down eventually." The taxi pulled up, and the triplets prepared to leave. "Tonight, then?" William confirmed. "Dinner somewhere quiet, away from cameras?" "Sounds perfect," Lily agreed, speaking for all of them. As the taxi pulled away, Mia watched William through the rear window, standing alone on the sidewalk, his shoulders slightly hunched against the unwanted attention. For the first time, she considered what it must have been like for him, growing up in the spotlight, the sole heir to a fortune and legacy he hadn't asked for. "He seems genuinely nice," Lily said, echoing Mia's thoughts. "I feel bad for him, dealing with that kind of attention his whole life." "It's the life he was born into," Emma remarked, though there was more understanding than judgment in her tone. "Just like our modest upbringing was what we were born into. Neither of us chose our circumstances." Back at the hotel, as Emma prepared for her video call and Mia settled in to review code, Lily's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The message was brief but sent a chill through her. "DNA can be faked. What's your real game, Morgan sisters? The truth always comes out." "Guys," she called to her sisters, her voice betraying her anxiety, "I think we have a problem." Mia and Emma gathered around her phone, reading the message with growing concern. "Someone thinks we're lying about being Harold's daughters," Emma said, her legal mind already analyzing the implications. Despite the DNA results. "Who would send this?" Lily wondered, still staring at the message. "And how did they get my number?" "Could be anyone," Mia replied, taking the phone and examining the number. An employee at the lab Harold used, someone from the wedding who overheard details, a reporter digging for a story. Or someone closer to home, Emma suggested. Someone with a vested interest in discrediting us. The implication hung in the air. Victoria had the most to lose from their sudden appearance in Harold's life. Her position as his wife, her influence over his decisions, her access to his fortune. "We shouldn't jump to conclusions," Lily cautioned, always the peacemaker. "It could be anyone," and Victoria seemed genuinely interested in finding common ground when she met with Emma. "True," Emma conceded, "but that was before we had a family meeting with Harold that she wasn't part of, before we started bonding with William. Her position is becoming more threatened by the day." "We should tell Harold about this," Mia decided, handing the phone back to Lily. "Not to accuse anyone, but because he should know someone is trying to undermine the DNA results." Before they could decide on their next move, there was a knock at their door. Cautious after the threatening text, Mia checked the peephole before opening it. A uniformed hotel staff member stood in the hallway with an envelope. "Delivery for the Morgan sisters," he announced, handing the envelope to Mia before departing. Inside was a handwritten note from Harold. "After our conversation, I realized you might prefer a more private gathering before any public appearances. Would you join me at my summer home on Long Island this weekend? Just the family. You three, William, Victoria, and me. No pressure, no society, just a chance to get to know each other better. Cars will be available if you accept. Harold." A weekend with the Spencers, Emma mused as they considered the invitation. That could either be a disaster or exactly what we need to establish some real connections. "I vote we go," Lily said decisively. "It's the kind of smaller step we just asked for. We can't refuse now." "I agree," Mia nodded. "But we should be prepared for anything, including more resistance to our presence in Harold's life." As they began to plan for the weekend ahead, none of them noticed the blinking light of the hotel phone, indicating a message had been left while they were out. A message from someone claiming to have known Eleanor Morgan in 1997. Someone with information that could change everything they thought they knew about their mother's relationship with Harold Spencer. It was Emma who noticed it first, the blinking red light on the hotel phone as she passed by the desk on her way to retrieve her laptop charger. "Hey, we have a message," she called to her sisters who were still discussing the weekend invitation from Harold. "Probably the hotel confirming our extended stay," Mia replied without looking up from her packing list for the Long Island trip. Emma pressed the voicemail button, expecting to hear the professional tone of hotel management. Instead, a gravelly male voice filled the room, causing all three sisters to freeze. "This message is for the Morgan triplets. My name is Dr. James Whitman. I was head of research at Spencer Technologies in 1997 when your mother worked there. I've seen the news stories about you three and Harold Spencer. There are things you should know about your mother and Harold, things that might change how you see both of them. Meet me at the Riverside Cafe tomorrow at 10 a.m. if you want to learn the truth. Come alone." The message ended, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Lily was the first to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. "What does that mean? What truth?" "Could be nothing," Mia said, though her expression betrayed her unease. "Maybe he's just looking to make money selling some story to the tabloids." "Or," Emma countered, her legal mind already analyzing possibilities, "he actually knows something important, something that could explain why Mom kept us a secret all these years." Lily's phone buzzed with a text from William, asking if they'd decided about the weekend at the summer house. The mundane normalcy of it seemed jarringly disconnected from the bombshell they'd just received. "What do we do?" Lily asked, looking between her sisters. "About Dr. Whitman? About the weekend?" "We do both," Mia decided after a moment of thought. "We meet with Whitman tomorrow morning, hear what he has to say, then head to Long Island afterward. Harold's assistant said the cars would be available whenever we're ready." "And if what Whitman tells us changes everything?" Emma pressed. "If it makes us not want to spend a weekend with Harold?" Mia considered this. "Then we'll cancel. but I think we need to hear him out before making any decisions. The Riverside Cafe was a small, unassuming establishment tucked away on a quiet corner near the Hudson. The triplets arrived 15 minutes early, selecting a table in the back that offered privacy while still allowing them to observe the entrance. They ordered coffee and waited, each lost in her own thoughts about what revelations might lie ahead. At precisely 10 a.m., a man entered the cafe. He appeared to be in his late 60s with thinning gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses, dressed in a tweed jacket that had seen better days. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on the three identical women watching him intently. Recognition, followed by a flash of something like pain, crossed his features. "You look so much like her," he said as he approached their table. "Eleanor, especially around the eyes." "Dr. Whitman?" Mia asked, her tone cautious. He nodded, taking the empty seat they'd left for him. "Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would." "Your message was intriguing," Emma said, getting straight to the point. "You said you know something about our mother and Harold Spencer that might change how we see them. What exactly did you mean by that?" Whitman ordered a coffee from a passing waitress before turning back to the sisters. "I worked closely with both your mother and Harold in those days. Eleanor was brilliant, one of the finest minds I've ever encountered. And Harold, well, he was ambitious, driven. Everything he touched seemed to turn to gold." "We know all this," Emma interrupted impatiently. "What we don't know is why you wanted to meet us." Whitman studied each of them in turn. "Because the narrative being spun in the press that Harold never knew about you because Eleanor kept you a secret isn't entirely accurate." The sisters exchanged startled glances. "What do you mean?" Lily asked, her voice barely audible. Whitman took a deep breath. "Eleanor didn't just disappear one day. Before she left, she and Harold had an intense relationship. It wasn't public. Office romances were frowned upon, especially between a company founder and his research assistant. But everyone in the inner circle knew. So they were actually together?" Mia clarified. "Not just colleagues?" "Very much so," Whitman confirmed. "For about 6 months. Then Harold got engaged to Diane Chambers, a strategic match orchestrated by his investors. Eleanor was devastated." "This matches what we already know," Emma pointed out. "Mom saw the engagement announcement and left without telling Harold she was pregnant." Whitman shook his head slowly. "That's not what happened. Eleanor did tell Harold she was pregnant. I know because I was there the day she told him in his office. I didn't mean to overhear, but the walls were thin in the old building." The sisters sat in stunned silence, the implications of this revelation crashing over them like a wave. What did he say when she told him?" Lily finally managed to ask. Whitman's expression was grave. "He told her it couldn't be his, that it must be someone else's. He accused her of trying to trap him, to derail his engagement to Diane. He fired her on the spot and had security escort her out of the building." The color drained from Lily's face. Mia's hands clenched into fists on the table. Emma's eyes narrowed as she assessed Whitman's credibility. "Why should we believe you?" she challenged. "You could be making this up for any number of reasons." Whitman reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a yellowed envelope. "Because I have proof. Eleanor asked me to hold on to this after she left. She said someday the truth might need to come out." He slid the envelope across the table. "It's a recording, from a device she kept in her purse the day she confronted Harold. She knew he might deny it, you see. She was always careful, your mother." Mia took the envelope with trembling fingers. "If what you're saying is true, why did our mother never use this? Why let us believe she chose to keep us a secret from Harold?" "Eleanor had her pride," Whitman said simply. "And she loved you three more than anything. She didn't want you growing up knowing your father had rejected you before you were even born." He stood, leaving his coffee untouched. "Listen to the recording. Make your own decisions about what kind of relationship you want with Harold Spencer. That's all I wanted, for you to have the complete truth." With that, he left as quietly as he'd arrived, leaving the sisters staring at the envelope on the table between them, a potential grenade in their already complicated lives. "Do we listen to it?" Lily asked, her voice shaking. "Here? Now?" "Not here," Mia decided, carefully placing the envelope in her purse. "Back at the hotel, where we can process it privately." Emma checked her watch. "The cars for Long Island are scheduled to pick us up in 2 hours. Then we have 2 hours to decide whether we're still going," Mia replied grimly. Back in their suite, the sisters gathered around Mia's laptop. The envelope contained an old mini cassette, the kind used in dictation devices in the late 90s. Fortunately, Mia, always prepared, had an adapter that could digitize the audio. "Ready?" she asked, her finger hovering over the play button. Her sisters nodded, though neither looked truly prepared for what they might hear. The recording began with muffled sounds of movement, then cleared as Eleanor's voice, younger but unmistakably their mother, spoke. "Harold, I need to talk to you. It's important." Harold's voice responded, friendlier than they'd expected. "Eleanor, come in. Is this about the Miller project? I've been meaning to discuss your algorithms." "It's not about work," Eleanor interrupted. "It's personal." A pause, then, "I'm pregnant." Silence followed, so long that the sisters wondered if the recording had stopped. Then Harold's voice, suddenly cold. "That's unexpected." "I know this isn't what either of us planned," Eleanor continued, her voice stronger now. "But I thought you should know. You deserve to know." "And you're certain it's mine?" Harold's tone was skeptical, almost dismissive. "Of course it's yours," Eleanor replied, hurt evident in her voice. "How can you even ask that? There hasn't been anyone else." A heavy sigh, then Harold's voice again, lower now, as if he'd moved away from wherever the recording device was hidden. "This is impossible timing, Eleanor. The engagement announcement goes public next week. The Series B funding hinges on my connection to the Chambers family. The company, everything I've built, it all falls apart if this gets out." "I'm not asking you to break your engagement," Eleanor said, her voice tight with emotion. "I just thought you should know about your child." "Children," Harold corrected tonelessly. The ultrasound showed 3. The sisters exchanged shocked glances. He'd known they were triplets. "Yes," Eleanor confirmed. "Triplets." "It can't be mine," Harold said flatly. "The timing doesn't work. We were careful." "No birth control is 100% effective," Eleanor countered. "You know that. And the timing is exactly right. I've been with no one else, Harold. I can't do this right now." Harold's voice had changed, become harder, more distant. "I think it would be best if you left the company. I'll arrange a generous severance package." "You're firing me?" Eleanor's voice cracked. "Because I'm pregnant with your children?" "I'm firing you because this personal situation makes our professional relationship untenable," Harold replied coldly. "Security will help you clear out your desk." The recording ended there, leaving the sisters in stunned silence. "He knew," Emma finally said, her voice hollow. "He always knew about us, and he chose his company, his engagement, his reputation over us, over Mom." "He rejected us," Lily whispered, tears streaming down her face, "before we were even born." Mia sat back, her expression unreadable. "And now he wants to play the devoted father, claiming Mom kept us from him all these years. It was all a lie." The ringing of Mia's phone cut through the tense atmosphere. William's name flashed on the screen. She answered, putting it on speaker. "Hey, just checking if you 3 are still coming this weekend?" William asked, his voice cheerful and oblivious to the bomb that had just detonated in their lives. "The cars should be there soon." The sisters looked at each other, a silent debate passing between them. "Actually, William," Mia began carefully, "something's come up. We might need to postpone." "Oh." His disappointment was palpable even through the phone. Is everything okay? Dad was really looking forward to this weekend."
"I'm sure he was," Emma muttered under her breath. "We just need to sort some things out," Mia continued, shooting Emma a warning look. "Family matters." "Anything I can help with?" William asked, genuine concern in his voice. Another silent exchange between the sisters. "We'll call you back in 30 minutes, Mia promised. "We just need to discuss something important." After hanging up, the three sat in troubled silence for a moment. "So what do we do?" Lily asked finally. "Confront Harold with the recording? Cancel the weekend? Go back to Boston and pretend none of this ever happened? I vote we go to Long Island," Emma said, surprising her sisters, "but not to play happy family, to confront Harold with the truth, face to face. He owes us that much." "I agree," Mia nodded. "But we should verify this recording first. It's 25 years old. We need to be absolutely certain it hasn't been altered." "How?" Lily asked. "It's not like we can ask Harold if it's real." "No," Mia admitted, "but I have a colleague who specializes in audio authentication. If I send him the file now, he might be able to tell us something before we reach Long Island." "And William?" Lily asked quietly. "Do we tell him?" This affects him too, in a way. Finding out his father isn't who he thought he was. "Not yet," Mia decided. "First Harold. Then we decide how to handle William." Emma nodded in agreement. "So we're really doing this? Spending the weekend with a man who rejected us before birth, then lied about it when we found him?" "We're confronting a liar with the truth," Mia corrected grimly. "What happens after that depends on what he has to say for himself." The Spencer summer home on Long Island was a sprawling Hamptons estate, less modern than the Manhattan penthouse but no less impressive. A white colonial mansion sat on meticulously landscaped grounds that stretched down to a private beach, the Atlantic Ocean providing a dramatic backdrop. Under different circumstances, the Triplets might have been awed by the beauty of the place. Today, they barely registered it, their minds consumed by the recording they'd listened to repeatedly during the 2-hour drive from the city. "Remember, we agreed to wait until after dinner," Mia reminded her sisters as their car pulled up to the main entrance. "We need to be strategic about this. I don't know if I can sit through an entire meal pretending everything is fine," Lily said, her usual composure cracking under the pressure of what they now knew. "How do I look at him knowing he rejected us? Rejected Mom?" "You don't have to look at him," Emma replied pragmatically. "Just focus on your food. Let me and Mia handle the conversation." The front door opened before they could exit the car. Harold stood there, a broad smile on his face that the sisters now viewed through a lens of suspicion. Behind him, William waited, his own smile genuine and welcoming. "You made it," Harold exclaimed, moving to help them with their bags. "I was beginning to worry when you called to say you'd be delayed." "Something came up," Mia said neutrally, avoiding direct eye contact with him. "But we're here now." If Harold noticed the coolness in her tone, he didn't show it. "William's been like a kid on Christmas morning waiting for you three to arrive. Haven't you, son?" William rolled his eyes good-naturedly. "Way to make me sound pathetic, Dad." He stepped forward to greet each sister with a warm hug. "But yeah, I'm glad you made it. Victoria's been on edge all morning micromanaging the staff. Having you here will at least direct her energy elsewhere." "Where is Victoria?" Emma asked, scanning the entrance hall with its soaring ceiling and sweeping staircase. "Overseeing lunch preparations," Harold replied. "She's determined to make a good impression." He lowered his voice conspirationally. "I think she's feeling a bit guilty about her initial reception of you three." The irony of Harold speaking about guilty feelings made Emma's jaw tighten. Lily, noticing her sister's reaction, quickly spoke up. "The house is beautiful. How long have you had it?" "I bought it after my divorce from Diane," Harold explained as he led them through the mansion. "William was 10. I wanted a place where he could have normal childhood summers, away from the city spotlight. Well, as normal as possible given the circumstances."
The casual mention of William's childhood, a childhood the triplets should have shared, sent another pang through the sisters. The contrast between Harold's devotion to his son and his rejection of his daughters before their birth could not have been more stark. Their bedrooms were in the east wing, 3 elegantly appointed suites with views of the ocean. After dropping off their luggage, they followed Harold down to a sunlit terrace where lunch was being set up. Victoria stood directing staff in the placement of dishes, looking every inch the perfect hostess in white linen pants and a blue silk blouse. "Ah, they've arrived," she said, turning to greet them with air kisses that didn't require actual contact. "Welcome to our summer home. I hope your drive was pleasant?" "It was fine," Mia replied, matching Victoria's polite but distant tone. "Thank you for having us." "Of course," Victoria said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Family is important to Harold, which makes it important to me." Lunch was a study in forced normalcy. Harold dominated the conversation, telling stories about the house, the surrounding area, his plans for them all to go sailing the next day if the weather held. The triplets contributed minimally, offering short responses when directly addressed but otherwise remaining quiet. William, sensing something was off but unsure what, tried to bridge the growing awkwardness with questions about their lives in Boston. "You're all so quiet today," Harold observed finally, setting down his wine glass. "Is everything all right?" "Just tired," Mia lied smoothly. "It's been an eventful week." "Of course," Harold nodded. "We have all weekend to talk. Why don't you 3 rest this afternoon? We can reconvene for dinner at 7. The triplets retreated to Mia's suite, gathering on the balcony where they could speak privately while watching the waves crash against the shore below. "I'm not sure I can wait until after dinner," Lily admitted, her hands fidgeting nervously in her lap. "Every time he acts like this caring father figure, knowing what he did to Mom, what he said about us." "Did you hear back from your audio expert friend?" Emma asked Mia. Mia nodded grimly. "Just got a text during lunch. He says the recording appears authentic. No signs of tampering or editing. The quality is what you'd expect from technology of that era." "So it's true," Lily whispered. "All of it." "We need to proceed carefully," Mia cautioned. "Remember, we're in his house, on his territory. Once we confront him, we don't know how he'll react." "You think he might throw us out?" Emma asked skeptically. "I think a man who's lied about something this fundamental for decades might have other secrets," Mia replied, "and people with secrets can be unpredictable when exposed." Meanwhile, in Harold's study on the other side of the house, a different conversation was taking place. Victoria stood by the window, arms crossed as she watched her husband pace the room. "Something's wrong," Harold said, running a hand through his hair. "They're different today. Distant. Perhaps they're having second thoughts about all this," Victoria suggested. "It's a lot to adjust to, suddenly being part of the Spencer family." Harold shook his head. "No, it's something else. They were warming up to me, to William. Now it's like they've taken 10 steps back." He stopped pacing. "Did you say something to them? After your meeting with Emma?" Victoria's eyebrows rose. "Are you accusing me of sabotaging your relationship with your long-lost daughters?" "No, of course not," Harold backpedaled quickly. "I'm just trying to understand what changed between yesterday and today." A knock at the door interrupted them. William entered, his expression troubled. "Dad, can I talk to you? About the triplets?" "You've noticed it too?" Harold asked. William nodded. "Something's definitely up. When I went to check if they needed anything, I heard them talking on the balcony. They mentioned a recording, and your name. They got quiet as soon as they realized I was in the hallway." Harold's face paled slightly. "A recording? Did you hear anything else?" "Just that they're planning to talk to you about it tonight," William replied, his eyes narrowing at his father's reaction. "Dad, what's going on?" "What recording?" "I have no idea," Harold claimed, though his voice lacked conviction. "Perhaps it's a misunderstanding." Victoria studied her husband with a calculating gaze. Harold, if there's something you need to tell us before dinner, now would be the time. Harold turned away, moving to the bar to pour himself a drink with hands that weren't quite steady. There's nothing to tell. I'm sure whatever it is, we can sort it out over dinner. The evening arrived with a palpable tension that even the spectacular sunset over the Atlantic couldn't dispel. The triplets dressed for dinner in coordinated but not identical outfits, a subtle shift from their previous appearances together. Each sister wore the same style of dress in a different color: Mia in navy, Lily in burgundy, Emma in forest green. It was the unconscious symbol of their unity, but individual strength as they prepared for confrontation. Dinner was served in the formal dining room, a grand space with a crystal chandelier and panoramic windows that would normally frame the moonlit ocean, but tonight were just reflective black mirrors. The first course passed in awkward conversation, with William making valiant attempts to engage everyone while Harold watched the triplets with growing concern. As the main course was being cleared, Mia made eye contact with her sisters, receiving slight nods in return. It was time. "Harold," she began, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system, "there's something we need to discuss with you." Harold set down his wine glass, his expression wary but composed. "Of course. What is it?" "It's about our mother," Emma continued, "and what really happened when she left Spencer Technologies in 1997. Harold's face remained impressively neutral, though a muscle twitched in his jaw. "I've told you what I know. She left suddenly without explanation." "That's not true," Lily said softly, her gentle voice making the accusation even more damning. "She told you she was pregnant, with triplets. Your triplets." The silence that followed was absolute. Victoria's eyes widened as she looked between the sisters and her husband. William's fork clattered against his plate. "I don't know what you're talking about," Harold said finally, but his voice lacked conviction. "We think you do," Mia replied, reaching into her purse and placing her phone on the table. "We have proof." Without further explanation, she pressed play. Eleanor's voice filled the dining room, young and vulnerable, followed by Harold's dismissive tone as he rejected her and their unborn children. The recording played in its entirety, each word damning in its clarity. When it ended, Harold sat frozen, his face ashen. Victoria's expression was unreadable, but her knuckles were white where she gripped her napkin. William looked shell-shocked, staring at his father as if seeing a stranger. "Where did you get that?" Harold asked hoarsely. "Does it matter?" Emma countered. "Is it authentic, Harold? Is that really how you responded when our mother told you she was pregnant with us?" Harold closed his eyes briefly, a man confronting a past he'd thought safely buried. When he opened them again, there was defeat in his gaze. "Yes," he admitted quietly. "That's what happened." "So you lied to us," Mia stated flatly. "You knew about us all along. You rejected us before we were even born, then pretended our mother kept us a secret from you." "It's not that simple," Harold began, but Emma cut him off. "It seems pretty simple from where we're sitting," she said, her lawyer's precision making each word a scalpel. "You chose your company, your engagement, your reputation over your own children, and when we showed up 25 years later, you saw an opportunity to rewrite history." "Dad," William interjected, his voice laced with disbelief. "Is this true? Did you know about them all this time?" Harold looked at his son, genuine pain in his expression. "I knew Eleanor was pregnant, yes, but I convinced myself it couldn't be mine, that she was lying to trap me, to derail the Chambers merger." "And after we were born?" Lily asked, the hurt child in her needing to understand. "Did you ever try to find out what happened to us? To her?" Harold's silence was answer enough. "I don't understand," Victoria said, speaking for the first time since the recording played. "If you knew about them, why act so surprised when they appeared at our wedding? Why the DNA test? Why all this?" She gestured around the table. "This family reunion charade?" Harold ran a hand over his face, suddenly looking older than his years. Because when I saw them standing there, looking so much like Eleanor, I realized what I'd thrown away, what my ambition had cost me. The DNA test was... I suppose it was a desperate hope that they weren't mine after all, that I hadn't made such a terrible mistake all those years ago. "But we are yours," Mia said, her voice surprisingly gentle despite her anger. "And you rejected us. Twice. First when our mother told you she was pregnant, and again in your mind when you hoped the DNA test would be negative." "No," Harold protested, leaning forward urgently. "Not the second time. When the test confirmed you were my daughters, I was relieved. It gave me a chance to make things right, to be the father I should have been from the beginning." "Or to ease your conscience," Emma suggested coldly. "Perhaps both," Harold admitted with unexpected honesty. "Is that so hard to understand? People can change in 25 years. The man who rejected your mother was young, ambitious, terrified of losing everything he'd built. The man sitting before you now has achieved all those ambitions and discovered they mean nothing without family to share them with." William, who had been watching the exchange in stunned silence, finally spoke. "All these years, you let me believe I was your only child, that you were this moral, upstanding father who always did the right thing." "I wanted to be that man for you," Harold said, turning to his son. "And in many ways I was. Being your father changed me, William. It showed me what really matters." "Just not enough to find out what happened to your other children," William replied, the hurt evident in his voice. A heavy silence fell over the table, broken only by the distant sound of waves crashing against the shore. The truth was finally out, but its aftermath was still unfolding, reshaping relationships and shattering illusions with each passing moment. Victoria, ever practical, was the first to recover. "I think we could all use some air. Perhaps we should continue this conversation tomorrow when emotions aren't quite so raw." "No," Lily said with unexpected firmness. "We've waited 25 years for the truth. I think we deserve answers tonight." She turned to Harold, her gentle eyes now hard with resolve. "Why did you really want to find us now? Is it guilt? A midlife crisis? Or is there something else you're not telling us?" Harold Spencer, a man accustomed to controlling every aspect of his life, sat at the head of his dining table with his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. The recording of his younger self, cold, calculating, ambitious, had stripped away the veneer of the benevolent father he'd tried to become. Now, faced with Lily's direct question about his true motives, he seemed to age before their eyes, the weight of decades of deception finally settling on his shoulders. "I deserved that question," he said finally, his voice quiet but steady. "And you deserve an honest answer." He looked at each of the triplets in turn. "Yes, there is guilt. Overwhelming guilt that has grown exponentially since seeing your faces at the wedding. But there's something else too." He reached inside his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. 6 months ago, I was diagnosed with early-stage pancreatic cancer." Victoria gasped softly. William's head jerked up, shock and hurt flashing across his features. "Dad, what? Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't tell anyone," Harold replied, placing a calming hand on his son's arm. "Not even Victoria. The prognosis is cautiously optimistic. The doctors caught it early and I've started treatment, but it forced me to confront my mortality in a way I never have before, to look at my life and acknowledge my greatest regrets." He unfolded the paper, revealing medical documentation that confirmed his diagnosis. "When you three appeared at the wedding, I saw it as a sign, a second chance I didn't deserve but desperately wanted. I thought perhaps the universe was giving me an opportunity to make amends before it was too late." "So we're your redemption story," Emma said, though there was less bite in her tone than before. "Your chance to die with a clean conscience?" "That's part of it," Harold admitted, not flinching from her bluntness. "But there's more. When I read Eleanor's letter, when I saw how she had raised you three without a word of bitterness toward me, despite what I'd done." He paused, emotion threatening to overwhelm him. "I realized I wanted to know you, not for my conscience but for yourselves, because you're extraordinary women who happen to be my daughters." Victoria, who had been watching Harold with an unreadable expression, spoke up. "Why didn't you tell me about the diagnosis? About any of this?" "Pride," Harold answered simply. "The same pride that cost me 25 years with my daughters. I didn't want you to see me as weak, as mortal. And once the triplets appeared, I was afraid you'd think my interest in them was only because of the cancer, that I was frantically trying to create a legacy before time ran out." "Isn't that exactly what you're doing?" William asked, his voice tight with emotion. Harold turned to his son, his expression pained but honest. "Not in the way you think. I'm not looking to divide the company or the fortune. I'm looking to mend what's broken, within our family and within myself. Legacy isn't just about money or business, William. It's about the people you've loved, and how you've loved them." He looked at the triplets again, or failed to love them. Mia, who had been silent throughout this revelation, finally spoke. "Does the cancer change anything for us? Should it?" Leave it to Mia to cut to the heart of the matter. Her question hung in the air, forcing everyone to confront the fundamental issue. Did Harold's illness obligate the triplets to forgive him, to embrace the father who had rejected them before they were born? "No," Harold said firmly. "It shouldn't change your feelings or your decisions. I didn't tell you about the diagnosis to manipulate you into forgiveness. I told you because you asked for my true motives, and I've lied to you enough." Lily, her natural compassion warring with the hurt of betrayal, asked, "Did you ever try to find us? After we were born?" Harold's hesitation told them the answer before he spoke. "No," he admitted. "I convinced myself it was better that way. That Eleanor would have moved on, found someone else to raise you with, that disrupting your lives would be selfish." "That's convenient reasoning," Emma pointed out. "It was cowardice," Harold corrected her. "Pure and simple. By the time William was born a few years later, I had mastered the art of compartmentalizing. The past was the past. I focused on being a good father to him, as if that could somehow balance the scales." William, who had been struggling to process these revelations, looked at his father with new eyes. "You've always told me that integrity is everything in business and in life, that your word is your bond." "And it was the biggest hypocrisy of my life," Harold acknowledged, "preaching values to you that I had failed to live by myself. I'm sorry, son, not just for lying to you about your sisters, but for failing to be the man I pretended to be." William turned to the triplets. "I want you to know that I had no idea about any of this. If I had known I had sisters out there—" His voice trailed off, the weight of what might have been hanging heavy in the air. "We know," Mia assured him. "None of this is your fault, William." An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Victoria, ever the pragmatist, broke it. "So where do we go from here? All of this has been illuminating, but the question remains. What happens next?" It was a good question. The truth was out, the lies exposed. But did that mean the end of their nascent family connections, or the painful beginning of something more authentic? Lily was the first to respond, her natural instinct toward healing pushing through her hurt. I think we need time to process all of this, but I don't want to just walk away and never look back." Emma looked surprised at her sister's words. "After everything we've learned, you still want a relationship with him?" "Not the same relationship we thought we were building," Lily clarified. "But yes, some kind of relationship. Mom kept us from hating him all these years by letting us believe he never knew about us. She must have had her reasons for that mercy. I think we owe it to her memory to at least consider forgiveness." Mia nodded slowly, her analytical mind having already reached a similar conclusion. Mom could have used that recording at any time. She could have demanded child support, exposed him publicly, ruined his reputation, but she didn't. She raised us to be strong, independent women who didn't need a father, but who might someday choose to know him. Emma, the most resistant to easy reconciliation, considered her sister's perspectives. "I'm not ready to forgive," she said finally, "but I am willing to listen, to try to understand how the man who rejected us became the man sitting at this table now." Harold, who had been bracing himself for their rejection, looked stunned at this tentative opening. "I don't deserve a second chance," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "but I would be grateful for one, on whatever terms you set." "I have terms," Emma said immediately, her legal mind already at work. "No more lies, no matter how painful the truth might be. Complete transparency about your health, your intentions, everything." "Agreed," Harold said without hesitation. "And no more pushing us into your world," Mia added. "No gala introductions, no trust funds, no society events unless we specifically ask for them. We build this relationship at our pace, not yours." "Absolutely," Harold agreed. "Anything else?" "Yes," Lily said softly. "Tell us about her, about Mom. Not just from the last few days you knew her, but what you remember about who she was back then, what you admired about her, what made you care for her before everything went wrong." Harold's expression softened at the request. Eleanor was remarkable. Brilliant, yes, but also quietly funny. She had this way of solving problems no one else could crack, but she never made anyone feel inferior for not seeing the solution themselves. She loved rainy days and black coffee and mystery novels. A small, sad smile touched his lips. She used to hum when she was really focused on a problem, always the same song, "Bridge Over Troubled Water." I don't think she even realized she was doing it. The triplets exchanged glances, a shared memory passing between them. "She still did that," Mia said quietly. "All our lives, when she was cooking or paying bills or helping us with homework, always that song." A moment of connection passed between them all, a thread linking past to present, the Eleanor who had loved the young Harold to the woman who had raised 3 remarkable daughters alone. "There's something else you should know," Lily said, reaching into her purse. She pulled out a small, worn photograph and handed it to Harold. "We found this among Mom's things after she died." Harold looked down at the image. Eleanor, much older than when he'd known her, seated in a hospital chair with an IV in her arm. Despite the obvious illness, she was smiling, holding up a newspaper with Harold's face on the cover, a recent article about Spencer Technology's breakthrough in renewable energy. The date stamp on the photo showed it had been taken just weeks before her death. "She followed your career," Mia explained. "All these years. She kept a scrapbook of your accomplishments. She wanted us to know about you, even if she couldn't bring herself to reach out." "Or didn't think you deserved to know us," Emma added, though her tone lacked its earlier edge. Harold stared at the photograph, a tear slipping down his cheek unchecked. "I didn't deserve her forgiveness," he said finally, "or yours. But I'm going to spend whatever time I have left trying to earn it." Victoria, who had been observing this emotional exchange with surprising empathy, finally spoke up. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation in the morning. It's been an overwhelming evening for everyone." William nodded in agreement. "A night to process might help us all." As they prepared to leave the dining room, Harold stopped the triplets with one last question. "Will you stay? For the weekend, I mean. I understand if you want to leave, but I'd like the chance to answer any other questions you have. To start building something new, if you're willing." The sisters exchanged glances, their silent communication working as efficiently as always. It was Mia who answered for all of them. "We'll stay," she said. "Not because we've forgiven you, but because we've spent 25 years with half the story of where we came from. We'd like the complete picture now." That night, as the waves crashed against the shore outside their windows, 4 children of Harold Spencer wrestled with the revelations of the evening. Each came to their own conclusions about forgiveness, family, and the complicated legacy of secrets long buried. And somewhere, perhaps, Eleanor Morgan watched over them all. The man she had once loved, the daughters she had raised alone, the son who had grown up never knowing his sisters, and the woman who had married a man with a past he couldn't outrun. Perhaps she finally found peace in knowing that the truth, however painful, had at last come to light. In the morning, they would begin the difficult work of building a true family from the ashes of lies and lost years. It wouldn't be easy. Real forgiveness rarely is. But as the first light of dawn broke over the Atlantic, illuminating the Spencer estate in gentle gold, there was hope, fragile but real, that from truth might come healing, and from healing a family bound not by obligation or appearances, but by choice and, eventually, love. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.